Hi again. Um, Actually, you may have a couple of weeks to get this done because it's not due until March 22nd, 23rd, and I know this week is your break, but that's okay. If it gives some people extra time to hop on it, that's fine with me. Okay. I was really pretty pleased with most of the stuff I found on young Goodman Brown. Most of you got the idea that he was a man who chose to go to see the devil in the forest. So, by implication, just his choosing to do that hangs a certain badge of evil upon him. The fact that at the end he said, "Faith, faith, look up to heaven and resist the evil one," doesn't really exonerate him or let him off the hook. He went there because he wanted to find out about evil, and you seem to have gotten that idea pretty well. With the minister's black veil, there were varied interpretations on that, and that's okay too, because of course we've said from the beginning that there are different kinds of ideas. But I'm pretty convinced that Parson Hooper is a good minister, not any kind of an evil person, a good person. Like every other person, he has done wrong, and I'm pretty convinced that he puts on the veil so that not only he can be admitting that he's done wrong, but also he can be reminding everybody that comes to hear him or sees him on the street that they have done wrong, okay? That there is some evil in the things that they have done. And as we talked about with Georgiana in the birthmark, the only way for somebody to achieve perfection is to be dead, okay? And the problem that I have, and I think Hawthorne had with the character Young Goodman Brown, is that young Goodman Brown judged himself as being better than everybody else who was at the witches' Sabbath. He seems to forget the fact that, at least in his dream or in reality, because we're not sure which it was, but that he went to the witches' Sabbath just as well as everybody else. And so he was shocked that the good shrank not from the wicked, but hey, he's there too. He shrank not from the good or the wicked, okay? So he's the biggest hypocrite of all because he turns himself off, basically, to everybody else because of what he sees that night. And Hawthorne wants to hit upon the hypocrisy of the Puritans. The same thing with Parson Hooper in The Minister's Black Veil. Hawthorne wants to hit upon the hypocrisy of the Puritans there because they're all willing to judge Parson Hooper, but they aren't willing to see their own reflection in that black veil. They are unwilling to realize that they too wear a black veil, even if only symbolically, okay? And we were talking about symbolism there. The black veil, of course, is an image of evil, but it is a symbol of the fact that we have all encountered evil in our lives. Nobody else in the town has the courage to recognize that and admit that except Parson Hooper. So out of all of them in that story, I see Parson Hooper in The Minister's Black Veil as the one that maybe rises above the rest because he's willing to say, I did wrong, but we've all done wrong. Everybody else wants to say, aha, Parson Hooper, you must have done wrong. So, in a sense, everybody else in that story is a hypocrite. Again, in Goodman Brown, I think Goodman Brown is the biggest hypocrite. Most of you kind of glossed over the information I gave about Faith's pink ribbons as being symbolic of the fact that she has a touch with both good and evil. Those pink ribbons are not just innocence, they are a mixture of both good and evil. Okay? Okay, so Now, for March 22nd, okay, we're going to be talking about point of view. By point of view, we're talking differently than when we talked about first person and third person narration. Okay, first person narration, the I kind of thing. I saw this, I did this, and third person narration is they. Well, now within third person narration, we're seeing how the point of view that the narrator has affects us as a reader. Okay, because we're reading two stories, both by the same name, but we get dramatically different points of view. The names of the stories, both stories, are The Lady with, one is The Lady with the Pet Dog, written by, oh gosh, the author's name escapes me this second. It'll come back to me. But the other one is Lady with the Pet Dog, and that's written by Joyce Carol Oates. Okay, so the two of them are back to back in your book, and in the first one that's written by a Russian author whose name escapes me, and I don't have it here in front of me, we get the story very much from a male perspective. The author is a guy, and he puts that guy's point of view into his narrator. So even though the two stories are quite similar, one gives more details than other. They're set in different time periods, but it's really the same kind of plot build-up. It's really the same kind of conflict going on. The characters even have the same names, and it's the same kind of relationship. It is marital infidelity in both stories, but the story written by the Russian male, oh gosh, I'm embarrassed, I can't remember his name. But anyway, the story comes from a male perspective there, and the Joyce Carol Oates story. Joyce Carol Oates lived some of her life in the Buffalo, Western New York area, and she still visits this area occasionally. Hers is it kind of is from a woman's point of view. And so what I want you to do when you look at these is note the differences in the way that the whole thing develops. In the one written by the male, we'll see that the main character, Gurov, at first thinks this whole affair thing is almost a game, and eventually it becomes something more serious than that. In the Joyce Carol Oates version, Lady with the Pet Dog, because it comes from a woman's perspective, she shows this story she shows this affair as being very serious to the woman right from the beginning. So what I'm looking for you to do when you get to your assignment this week is to contrast what you find in the points of view. I mean, okay, it's all right to say, one takes place in Europe and one takes place in the United States, so that's different. But, so the setting is different. And setting can have dramatic effects, and there are some things that show up in here because of the setting. But primarily, the major differences we're seeing are in the way that our narrators present the stories to us, in the point of view that the story comes from. So when you write this week, that's what I want you to write about, okay? And for a question this week, tell me would you want the woman in the Joyce Carol Oates story to be a friend of yours? If yes, why? If no, why? And do that in no more than 2 sentences, okay? You don't have to write a whole paragraph. So would you want that character who is Anna in the Russian character story, would you want her to be a friend of yours? Okay? Have a good time. We'll see you again on the 23rd.